Make sense? Okay. Now the question is, calcium is stored inside the sarcoplasmic reticulum or SR. Who takes calcium from here to inside? These tubes or T tubule, transverse or T tubule. Just remember T tubule. They take the calcium from SR to inside. Okay? So it's like this. You see, this is sarcomere, right? So this is the tube, SR, filled with calcium. So these tubes are filled with calcium. And from here, T tubule will take the calcium inside, like this. Okay? So T tubules, SR, filled with calcium. T tubules will take the calcium to inside, and that calcium will bind with troponins. Okay, so that is the mechanism of muscle contraction, molecular mechanism of muscle contraction. If you see sarcomere under regular microscope, not very powerful, but you will see some dark and light areas. You don't need to remember the names. They have A band, Z disc, H band, those names you don't need to remember. But what you need to know is why you have dark and light areas. Very easy. If you see a sarcomere under the microscope, you see here, in some areas you have more structures. In some areas you have less structures. For example, if you see this part, you have both both thin and thick filaments. So less light will pass through this part. Make sense? Because more structure. You know what we do in microscope? We see from the top, right, above, and pass light from the bottom, right? Now if you have more structure here, less light will pass through it. So that area will look dark. If less structure is here, more light will pass through it. Will look light. Make sense? So that's why some areas are lighter, some areas are darker. For example, here you don't have any thick filament. So you see light. More light will pass through. Here you have both thick and thin. That's why dark. Here you have only thin in the center of the sarcomere. So it will look different. Okay? Just know that. Okay. So one part is done. How the muscle contraction occurs. All these are very important. I will ask questions from all these. Okay? And if you just go over, you will be able to answer. Now, another very important thing, the last thing, neuromuscular junction. I told you, when we contract the muscle, we send signal from the brain, right? That I'll contract this muscle. So from the brain, electrical signal goes to the muscle, right? Then the calcium is released. So, from the brain, you tell me, who takes the signal to the muscle? What is this? What do you think? This is you have seen it under microscope, neural tissue, right? Neuron. Okay. So, from the brain, neuron takes the signal to the muscle. Make sense? What kind of signal? What kind of signal? Everybody. Neurons carry what kind of signal? Electrical. I mentioned many times. Okay. So this is a motor neuron. To contract the muscle. And this is a muscle fiber. This is another muscle fiber. Okay? At the end of the axon, this is the axon. These are dendrites. Okay. So at the end of the axon, you have axon terminal like this. Okay. And these are muscle fibers. So this is another muscle fiber. So this neuron is taking signal from the brain to how many muscle fibers here? How many muscle fibers? 3, right? 3. There are some neurons, those are big neurons, they can give signal to 100 to 1000 muscle fibers. This is a small neuron, that's why only few. Make sense? So some neurons give signal to many fibers, some neurons, small neurons give signal to few fibers, right? So it varies, it's not fixed. So this one, motor neuron, is giving signal to only 3 muscle fibers. So this neuron and these 3 muscle fibers together is called a motor unit. This is a motor unit. So one motor neuron and the muscle fibers innervated by it, getting signal from it. Together is called what? The motor unit. Is it clear? So some motor units are what? Big, like 1000 muscle fibers. One neuron, 1000 muscle fibers. Make sense? That's a big motor unit. This one is a small motor unit. Okay, so muscle fiber. Okay, good. And where the axon terminal, this is the axon terminal, end of the axon, joins the muscle fiber. This is called a synapse. So this is another synapse. This is another synapse. This synapse between neuron and muscle is called a neuromuscular junction. Neuromuscular junction. So this is one synapse or neuromuscular junction. This is another synapse or neuromuscular junction. This is another. Now you see one thing. There is a gap. They are not physically attached to each other. There is what? A gap where the neurotransmitter works. Okay? And this neurotransmitter is called acetylcholine, ACH, acetylcholine. Okay? Okay, now let's just see this part under very powerful microscope. Only this part. Okay? So this is the axon terminal, this part, and this is the muscle fiber, okay? Muscle, and this is axon terminal. Inside the axon terminal, you have vesicles. You already know vesicles. Okay, so these are vesicles filled with that neurotransmitter acetylcholine or ACH. So these vesicles are located in the axon terminal, and these vesicles are filled with a neurotransmitter or neurochemical that is called ACH, acetylcholine. And on the muscle fiber, you have receptors. These are what kind of receptors? ACH receptors. Okay, so on the muscle fiber you have many receptors, and in the axon terminal you have many vesicles filled with ACH, And these receptors are ACH receptors. That means receptors for these chemicals. Okay, now this part of presynaptic, this part of axon terminal is called presynaptic membrane. Pre means before, you know that, presynaptic membrane. This is a membrane before the synapse. And on the muscle fiber, this part of muscle fiber is called postsynaptic membrane. This also makes sense. Post means after. Synaptic membrane. So you have two membranes, they are facing each other. Presynaptic is before, postsynaptic is after. Presynaptic is in axon terminal, postsynaptic is on the muscle fiber. Okay, and this is the gap I showed you here. There is a gap. And this gap is called cleft. Synaptic cleft. I believe you have heard the word cleft. Have you?
What, palate?
Cleft palate. That means gap, right? Gap. Cleft lip. Have you seen that? Cleft lip space or gap. Okay. So this gap is called synaptic cleft. Okay, so that is the structure. If I ask you to draw a neuromuscular junction, this is the structure of a neuromuscular junction. Okay? Presynaptic terminal, presynaptic membrane, vesicles inside, and the vesicles are filled with ACH molecules. Clear? Okay. And this is the muscle fiber. You will draw the muscle fiber. This part of muscle fiber is called postsynaptic membrane, right? And on the postsynaptic membrane, you have many what? Receptors. Receptors for what? Yes. Is it clear? Okay. Now let's go to the last part. Okay. So when you decide that you will contract the muscle from the brain, the motor neuron, this one, right? Motor neuron takes electrical signal to these muscle fibers. Make sense? Send signal to the muscle fibers. And what happens, you see, that electrical signal very fast travels like this, quickly. Goes like this, comes and goes. And when the electrical signal travels through the presynaptic membrane, what happens? Calcium gets in. This is another calcium, not the one we talked before. So calcium ion gets in and causes the rupture of these vesicles. So just remember that calcium gets in to do what? Do what? Rupture the vesicles. Okay? So when the vesicles will be ruptured, ACH molecules will come out. So these are the ACH molecules. Into the cleft. Will be released into the cleft. And these receptors are waiting for that, okay? These are the receptors. So what will happen? It's like key lock. ACH molecules will perfectly fit on these, to these receptors. Because these are ACH receptors, their binding site is very, perfect for these molecules. Okay, so that binding will do what? Receptor molecule binding will cause the opening of sodium channels on postsynaptic membrane, and sodium will get in. Influx of sodium into the muscle fiber. Sodium will get in. Make sense? Okay, so let's quickly review now. Let's see your memory. Okay, so this is what? This guy is what?
Axon.
Whole thing is a neuron, right?
Yeah.
Motor neuron. So, and this part is called what? Axon, right? And these are axon terminals. Is it clear? End of the axon. Okay. Axon terminals end on these structures. These are what? Muscle fibers, right? Muscle fibers. Are they attached directly or there is a gap?
Yeah.
Gap. Where ACH is released. Neurotransmitter. Make sense? Okay. And that gap is called synaptic cleft, right? Now if I see this structure under heavy powerful microscope, only this part, this is the axon terminal and this is the muscle fiber. Inside the axon terminal you have what? Vesicles are filled with what? ACH, acetylcholine, and the membrane of axon terminal, that is called what? Presynaptic membrane. Right? And the membrane on the muscle fiber, that is called postsynaptic. Post means after. Okay? Postsynaptic membrane. On postsynaptic membrane, you have many tiny receptors, ACH receptors, right? So they are waiting to receive the ACH molecules. Now, when electrical signal we send from the brain to the muscle, signal goes like this, and that opens the calcium channel. Calcium gets in to do what? Rupture the vesicles to release the ACH into the cleft. Is it clear? Okay. And ACH molecules will then get attached to the receptors, because these are the receptors for ACH molecules. And when that will happen, on postsynaptic membrane, sodium channels will get opened and sodium will get in. Influx of sodium into the muscle fiber. Is it clear? Okay, good. Now I am drawing this muscle fiber here, okay, just to make it clear. This is the muscle fiber, okay. Skeletal muscle fiber, cylindrical, you know that, okay. So sodium channels got opened, so sodium influx. Sodium got in to the muscle fiber. Sodium is positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. Okay. When sodium gets into the muscle fiber, inside the muscle fiber will become more positive or negative?
Positive.
Makes sense? Because positive is getting in, right? Okay. Now if I draw it here, this is before sodium got into the muscle fiber, when the channels were closed. This is the condition inside. Now when sodium got in, if I draw this way positive, moving this way is positive and this way is negative. So when sodium gets in, inside is more positive, right? So I'm looking inside, just remember. So it will go up. Make sense? Towards positive. This is called what? Have you heard this word? Depolarization. Very important in physiology. Physiology, depolarization is very important. That means influx of what? Sodium. And inside becomes what? More positive. Is it clear? Depolarization. Then after a while, what will happen? These channels will naturally get closed. No more open. Okay? Next, what will happen? Another type of channel will get opened, and that is the potassium channels, and that will let the potassium get out. Remember, potassium is also positive. Now what is happening next? Sodium is getting closed, potassium channels are getting what? Opened, and potassium efflux outwards, getting out. So now you tell me, positive potassium is getting out. So inside will be more positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative. Very good. So it will go down towards negative. And that is called what? Repolarization. Okay. So you see, influx of sodium causes what? influx of sodium causes depolarization. That means more positive, right? Inside. Efflux or exit of potassium causes what? Depolarization. So this is due to potassium efflux or outflux, and sodium influx or entrance. Okay, very good. So we are done. Now the last thing. Okay, the last thing. You have learned everything. So now just to put them together. Okay. So when we decide again that I will move this, contract this muscle. Okay, I send signal from the brain, right, through motor neuron, right? Take signal, right, to the muscle. And what will happen? All these things will happen, right? So sodium channels will get open, finally. Sodium influx will occur. That will cause what? Depolarization in this muscle fiber, right? Make sense? Now, why we need this depolarization to happen? Depolarization is very important.
Homeostasis.
That will tell the, you remember the tube-like structures filled with what? Calcium, sarcoplasmic reticulum around the myofibril. Remember that? I told you that calcium will be released from there, right?
Yeah.
And will be taken inside the myofibril by T tubules. But I did not tell you who will tell SR to release calcium. I did not tell that, right? I said SR will release calcium. Who will tell SR to release calcium?
The depolarization.
When in this muscle fiber depolarization will occur, that will give signal to SR to release the calcium. Is it clear? So calcium will get in, bind with troponins, will move the tropomyosin to the side. Make sense? That will free the myosin head and actin ball, right? They will get attached, cross bridging, and then power stroke. Is it clear? Now you got the whole picture. Okay? So that's how the muscle contraction happens. Okay? So just these are the important things.